We are live. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We're a bit later than usual, so I apologise, but welcome back to Beyond the 90. Hopefully you're doing well. In this one, you've seen by the title, we're going to talk about Daka. Looks like he's pretty much signed at this moment. And over to you. What have you seen? Give us your initial thoughts on the dude and what you thought so far, because a lot of Leicester fans have been salivating over this one.
Well, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you will know that I didn't know a huge amount about Daka. I only found out what league he played in the other day, but I've done quite a bit of research since then. I've looked into him quite a lot, and he's a name that, like, you've seen Liverpool fans talking about a lot because he's been heavily linked to them, and they rate him very highly. And his goal-scoring record alone speaks for itself. And I know people are going to say the league he's in isn't the best, but when you're scoring 27 goals in 28 league games, you've got to turn around and take notice of that. So he's clearly a huge, huge talent. And those numbers are very similar to what a certain Erling Haaland was doing whilst he was playing at Salzberg. So you've got to take notice. And the fact that we've got him for £17 million, it looks like an absolute steal.
Yeah, it really does. Alex, have you got anything else to add to that? Because again, there's been some conflicted evidence, which I'll get into in a second, but any other thoughts on that or anything else to add? And if you want any more, leave your comments below. We'll try and answer them as we go.
I didn't really know much about him. When the name kind of popped up, I was like, okay, I've never seen this before, but, I'll do a little bit of research on him. And, what I found was incredible. If you're getting 34 goals, in all competitions in a season is pretty fantastic, and also, bringing in 12 assists as well, so that's a statement in itself. I believe he's only 22. He's 22 years old. So he's got plenty of time to develop into an even better player. And, I think that's just one thing that you can look at is, and especially, the rumored, the price that we've got him for is, it's highway robbery. If that's the case, I think, I'm going to remain skeptical and just, say, if that's the price that we actually get him at, I will say that, I think in a year or two or three, I think we'll be laughing and saying how big of a bargain we actually picked up this player for.
Yeah, because it's actually less of a fee than we bought Iheanacho for. And so looking into that, I don't think he's a player. I think people are excited for him, and rightfully so. But at the same time, I think there's a little bit about it which you're going, let's take our time with this one, because we saw with players like Iheanacho, we saw like players like Sionchu, that these players look great, but they do need time to bed into the Premier League, especially when they come from the Austrian league, which is a very different league to the Premier League.
Yeah, and I think it's what you said. I think we're going to need to have patience with him, and he's a very raw talent. Like when you watch him, I've watched about an hour's worth of compilations of him, so this is talking from not seeing a huge amount of him. I watched the 2 games against Liverpool as well in the Champions League, where he scored a couple of goals. But you can see that he's a raw talent and blistering quick and a decent finisher. But the technical side of his game, that's something that he will work on, and I think he's come into the perfect place to do that in a team with a manager like Brendan Rodgers, a young team that I think he'll be given a lot of opportunities on. But at the same time, if it's not going 100% well for him, we've got the options now to be able to rotate with Vardy and with Iheanacho. So it's not the pressure of, if he's playing really bad, that he's still got to keep playing and keep playing. If he is struggling, he'll be able to be taken away from the limelight, away from the starting 11, and then maybe coming off the bench and using him that way. So yes, he might come in and be like the next best striker going, but I don't expect that at all. I expect him to slowly integrate himself into this team, and then hopefully over the next year or so really become a main man.
Yeah, and I think, as you were saying, it's going to take time. One thing as well that Tommy has put as well, Eduard and Daka up front look scary. I mean, we will talk about Eduard. I think we got, you can say a little bit more, Alex, but that looks like it's off the table. That's done from what we hear as well. So it's just Daka. But just to kind of twist that question, what do you think about Iheanacho and Daka? Because my problem maybe slightly is them two seem very, very similar players. And at times, I think we've all gone and watched, because the videos for the Leicester Daka now has hundreds of thousands of views. But looking at that, you're going, okay, he looks very similar to Iheanacho, and he has a lot of time on the ball in Austria, which he won't get the same in England. But yeah, back to my question, just with them two together, do you think that they would have the same? They play two similar roles and they couldn't work together? Because we're looking at the likes of Iheanacho when he works better in a two.
So after kind of analyzing just some of the highlight reels, I know you can't really get a full clear picture through just a highlight reel. I saw some comparables to Nacho, but ultimately from what I've kind of got from him is that he kind of plays like Vardy. I will say that. That's what I've really noticed. So to me, I'm not really concerned about, if Nacho and Daka do end up playing together. I think you'll see much more of a partnership, kind of like how Vardy and Nacho play together. And that's ultimately what I'm really thinking. I could be completely wrong. That's the other thing that I think right now we need to be patient. I think that's the big key, because, you can Google, you can YouTube as many Daka highlights as you want, but it's not going to give that clear picture. And I think what we need to be patient to be able to watch is to watch him play in a Leicester kit during the season, during preseason, during the cups and whatever. Because at the end of the day, he's only 22. He's coming from the Austrian league. There's gonna take some time to get used to playing in the Premier League, and I think that's the big thing that I really want to echo to a lot of fans, because I think there's a lot of fans that are they're excited, and you should be excited, but you need to realize that not all players jump from one league to another and are superstars. It's going to take time to develop and get used to the type of football that's being played. Having said that, I do feel confident that Daka will do really well in the Premier League. I really do believe that. And whether that he be playing with, Jamie Vardy, or if he's playing with Nacho, I do think that he will find some great chemistry with one or both of them. And to sum up the Eduard discussion, I really do. From what I've heard, that's dead in the water. But don't quote me on that. But from what I've heard, that's what it sounds like. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why we switched over to Daka. I mean, I can't see Leicester City splashing out on 4 strikers. It just doesn't seem something that we'd have more. We'd have to place him on the wing, and that would just be anyway. It doesn't seem like it's good. And again, Eduard, from what we heard, again, is right. I want to see something else as well here as well. So, question from Rob Tanner as well. So the deal is about $23 million. So pounds on a 5-year contract, and lots of fun. So that's the minimum that the deal should be finalized next week as time of recording, and this was put out, I think, just 3:00 today, so about 6 hours from now. So again, it's not too that looking good. I know there's been conflicting reports in terms of Romano confirmed it, and we all went, "Oh my god, let me look at this player. Oh my god, he's amazing." And I think somebody else, I can't remember the exact person, was like, "Nothing's confirmed yet. They've just been in contact with the club." But I think this Rob Tanner from the Athletic, he's been on the show before. We trust him. He said that it's confirmed on a 5-year deal. But it seems like we're doing the business the right way, Ant. But the question is, how many goals he's going to score with Europa League now? He's used to that. He's used to playing Europa League football. Is this the kind of This is where we'd probably see him and probably intervene him very slowly into the league, and then probably bring him into the Premier League later, because Vardy is going to recover from this injury, but I think that's where he's going to be used the most.
Potentially, but I remember when we were talking at the start of last season saying a very similar thing about Fofana, of he'll probably play the Europa League, he'll probably play the Carabao Cup. But if he comes into a Premier League game, scores a couple of goals and gets on a run, then you can't not start him. So I think it's very much dependent on how he gets on. So it could well end up being that he plays Carabao Cup games and he plays Europa League games. But if he starts scoring goals, then you've got to really start putting him in the team. So I think it's brilliant, the fact that we're going to have 3 strikers who are all going to want to be starting and really pushing for those places. And competition, I think, particularly with Vardy and Iheanacho, I think that will get the best out of them. So I think it's really going to be based on who's performing. And what I hope that we see is that no one's guaranteed a spot, where they've got to earn it, and the players that are in form are playing.
No, definitely agree as well. I think just from your experience, Alex, and from what you see of him, what formation do you think would work best for him as well?
I would say would fit with two up front. I really do. So, but at the same time, I could be wrong. Like I said, like I've said before, it's so hard to tell, through highlight reels, and there isn't much on him, and I think that's the hardest thing. Some people can say, "Oh, I've watched games," but I'll be brutally honest. Like I heard his name a few times, but like over the last couple of weeks is when I've really heard his name. But I really think it's healthy competition, because like the biggest thing is it's uncertain. You look at Ant said it perfectly. Fofana, we were all kind of talking about him. You're like, oh, he'll play in the Carabao Cup. He'll play, he'll play in Europa League games. He'll play in the FA Cup games, and all of a sudden he came in, he was lights out. He was undroppable, and you look at, Nacho, by December was, he wasn't coming off the bench, but when he started going, everyone was like, you can't drop him. You just simply can't drop him. So am I saying that he's going to jump in and, take off? No, but if he comes in and he's riding a hot streak, say with Nacho, I don't know if you can drop either one of them. And as crazy as I'm saying this, who's to say that Vardy gets the short end of the stick? Really, what you're looking at is healthy competition. And that's exactly what you want. This is a situation for Brendan Rodgers where he's going to come into this and be like, this is perfect for me. I'm going to have hungry players battling out for one or two positions. They're going to be giving a top-notch effort every single time they get that opportunity, because if they don't and they're not able to do it and someone else is doing so, it's going to be lights out. They're going to choose exactly who it is. Maybe someone else is going to be riding the bench who you do not expect. Yeah,
no, that's a great point as well. I think that maybe in the future we could see him. One thing I was thinking of today, just as because I just genuinely think Leicester City all the time. Sometimes I was walking into town. I was like, okay, where could he work? I don't know what you guys think of this. Imagine a 4-3-3. So you've got like Ricardo and fully fit, and we're Justin on one side or Castagna on the other. Then a back four of Evans and Fofana. Then you got a three in the midfield of Ndidi with Tillemans and Samore. Then up front you've got Daka up front with I'm smiling already, you can see, and then you got Barnes on one side, and then like maybe Nacho or another right winger, like even an Albrighton, to give you that width. That formation just looks absolutely insane. Like a kind of if you play in the kind of Jurgen Klopp style with Daka up front as your main bot, but then you've got somebody like Barnes who can match him for pace, and then somebody like Albright that can provide the crosses or give the width or go over to that right hand side. I think that formation looks really juicy.
Yeah, or if we could get a Trincao or a proper right winger in, I'm fully behind it. But no, I do like Albrighton, but that is still an area of concern, is that right wing. Like we really don't have a top quality right winger there, do we? But no, I do agree with what you're saying about that formation, and I think what Brendan Rodgers is trying to do with the signings that he's bringing in this summer is be able to switch in between systems, like you say, that 4-3-3 potentially a possibility, 5-2-1-2 that we were playing at the end of last season, have that as a possibility, or 4-2-3-1. So I think he wants to have it so he can switch it up in games depending on how the game's going. But at the end of last year, well, I say the end of last year, for the majority of last year, we didn't have the squad depth or the quality within certain areas of the pitch to be able to switch formations like that just as easily as he wants. So I think it's definitely something that he's looking to do.
Yeah. It's going to be a really, I'm really looking forward to this one. But one thing as well I wanted to mention as well, Alex, this guy looks great with his head. And this is something that I've seen again and again. I mean, I think he stands at 1.83 meters, which is not exceptionally tall, but especially when we have set pieces, something we've complained about a long time is that we don't have somebody to put their head on it. Sure, we've got Suyunchu and Evans, but for some reason, they don't quite have that heading ability to put the ball in the back of the net as consistently as we'd want. Do you think Daka could come in and do a job on that as well? Because that's probably one of the reasons why we want to look to buy him as well.
Well, yeah. So I actually just Googled really quickly. You're like spot on his height. So he's 6 feet tall. Because I had to, do the conversion because I don't know meters because I'm Canadian and I'm just going to admit it. Don't know that. But I think that's key because it's just a different way to get more goals. If he's skilled in that type of way, it allows us to really utilize different strategies. Who's to say, we can really benefit possibly off of corners now. I know we didn't do well last season with them or the year before that. It just seems like that's one of our that's our kryptonite. But who's to say that this, bringing Daka in, knowing that he's good, scoring headers, it's one of those things that you just kind of go, okay, maybe this is something that we can work with and really utilize, as a positive. So I think that it's definitely going to just improve, because I think, if he has that in his, he has that in his back pocket, I think that's just something you got to utilize.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we need to, again, and we were saying we need to improve on. But one thing I want to come back to as well is that Jamie Vardy is obviously going to be his understudy. We've not really seen it before where Jamie Vardy was understudy. How well do you think Jamie Vardy could do in the role to train somebody how to do his role?
I don't know if it'll sort of be training Daka to do his role, because I think the fact that they've been scouted, and I think Daka's been scouted as already a very similar player to Vardy. So I don't know if it will be 100% of Vardy like coaching Daka per se, but I do think that there'll be like that bit of leadership there from him. But I know you're saying we haven't seen that from Vardy before. I think to an extent we have seen him as a leader and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's exactly just guiding Daka, because I think Daka's is going to be his own player. But I think that he'll work off him well and he'll learn the league off him well, because I think Vardy's the perfect player to have someone when you're coming into a league to learn it off kind of thing, because Vardy had a very difficult transition in his first year in the Premier League, because he struggled massively, because I don't think he scored a huge amount of goals in that first year that we were up for. It was something like that.
Yeah.
So I think he's a perfect kind of player to have when it's not particularly going well, to say keep going, but you can get to that level. Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see what kind of partnerships he will form, because Leicester City kind of have this. I think certain players. I think we did this in our year of the in the end of year awards, where we had certain players, certain positions that form certain duos. Who could you think that he would form that relationship with? Because Nacho is the obvious one. But there could be maybe even somebody, like you look at the likes of Tielemans and Castagna, for example, especially towards the beginning of the season, where he would know exactly where he was and get the ball. Like, for example, Tielemans didn't even have to look up. He knew that Castagna was making the run. So in that case, who do you think would be who would form a good partnership with, Alex?
I think it's going to be dependent on who plays the number 10 role. And I know I'm bringing this up, and I know we tried not to talking about this, but, it'll be interesting to see who plays that number 10 role next season. There has been speculation surrounding Maddison, but I really ultimately believe that, he'll have, he'll have that communication and whatnot with, if he plays with the two up front. But I really do think whoever plays in that number 10 role will be that player that he really communicates with and gels with and meshes with. I know that's taking a stab in the dark, considering, it kind of seems that everything's kind of up in the air with that. And, Arsenal fans are screaming that, we're going to take away, Leicester City's best player. But, that's definitely not the case. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And that's kind of where I'm kind of aiming at is, whoever plays that number 10 role next season, I think that's where Daka is really going to, thrive with. And especially what I do believe Nacho and Vardy, I think both of them he'll do really well with. But that number 10 role, I think, will be the main person.
Yeah, we've seen that with Vardy and Maddison, especially when Maddison first joined. But especially with looks like that Tielemans is going to stay next year from what we're reading as well. And do you think that could be something? Because again, Tielemans just looks like he's getting better and better and better. But I think his relationship could form something with Daka. I think would be fantastic as well.
It's so hard to say, having watched a limited amount of game time for Daka. So you'll start to see it sort of in the pre-season, and then as we get into the start of the season, sort of his movements and sort of who he's playing well with and stuff. But I do think the fact if we can get a number 10, if Maddison does go, which I'm hoping he doesn't, but if he does, he does. It is what it is. But I'm hoping that we can get a number 10 that plays those balls in between the lines as well as Maddison does, because I think Daka is lightning quick. So if we can get a player that can exploit the space as well as Maddison does, I think they're going to have a brilliant relationship. But I know this is going back to Maddison and didn't want to talk about it too much. But I've just seen that comment. He'll link up with Gossens, of course. Yeah, hopefully. But no, going back to the Maddison thing. So what I saw on Twitter earlier today is, if Maddison goes, do you reckon that's more of an incentive for Tavares to stay? Because it almost opens up the pathway to the first team, which was what was making him look elsewhere. And it got me thinking.
That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting. I see what you mean, but I see him as a very similar player to Samore, somebody that can get the ball and travel with it and go forward. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Alex, but I can't see Tavares in a number 10. I see him more as kind of playing alongside another player, maybe as kind of like a Dennis Pratt role. That's
kind of what I'm seeing, because I think if Maddison leaves, hypothetically, I think that would open up the role for Dewsbury Hall. He might play off the bench. I don't think he would get starting minutes, but I would definitely allow him to possibly slot in if he could. But no, it's a good one. I think Tavares would play best with another player, kind of like how Tielemans and Ndidi play together. They're great by themselves, but when they play together, they're just absolute dynamite. But I don't feel fully confident with Tavares playing by himself. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one to say as well. Do you know what? There's some interesting things put in the comments. I'll get to them now. Who stole stuff from Man City in the Community Shield? We'll probably get into that more towards the time comes. But just off the top of your head, guys, what do you think is like a quick answer to that?
If Vardy's fully fit, because I still don't think he's fully fit, Vardy will play, but I think you might.
Nacho against his old club.
I'm going to go with Nacho.
Do you think he'll be a front two, Anne? Again, just kind of a quick answer thing. Quick fire round.
Potentially, but we've probably got 4 pre-season games before that, but we'll decide who plays against Man City. So I am firmly sat on the fence for this one.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I just saw you comment, Alex. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I think anything else you guys have added about Daka that you've not seen before, that you've seen, because again, I think we've covered all areas, because again, there isn't a lot of information out there to really cover, and nobody's really I would love to get some Austrian Salzburg fans off. So if you know anybody, make sure to message them and say we'd love to be in contact with you, because that would be great. But any other thing to add, because I think overall it's something really to get excited about.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go on, Alex.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one more thing to add is Brendan Rodgers has mentioned about bringing in players that have won stuff over the last couple of years, about winning mentality. He's won the Austrian Super League, Premier League, whatever it is. That's huge, as well as Samore, who's won the League One with Lille. He's trying to build that winning mentality. So hopefully as well, if we bring in a couple more signings, but they'll also have won trophies in the last few years to really improve that mentality around the club.
Yeah, that's an interesting. That's well. But Alex, anything else?
No, I think what Ant said was perfect. Rodgers really wants that winning mentality, and you're bringing in 2 players, with Daka and Samare, who have both won. They're young, but they're experienced in that way that they know what winning means and they know how to get there. So I think that's key. I don't think these 2 will be the only signings of the summer. I really do believe that Leicester will make a statement this summer, and you're going to see. I really do think you'll see some players leave that you don't expect. Possibly it could be Pratt, but it could be other players. You never know. This could be a weird summer, but I do think that we're going to see a lot of players come in.
No, it's definitely going to be interesting to see who's going to come in. One thing as well, I don't know if you guys have seen. I'm good to Abdi Rahman says, any chance that we get Berardi? I mean, he would be awesome, but honestly, can we see it happening? Not really.
Uh,
I mean,
he's one
it
of-
would be amazing, but I don't think it's happening.
He's one of those. He's reported 41 million. To buy someone like that, we'd either have to have been in the Champions League this year, or we'd have to sell to buy, which ideally we don't want to do. But he does look an absolutely brilliant player.
Yeah, and yeah, that Italian team's only going to go up in the future years as well. But apart from that, thank you everybody for watching. If you make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, because we're trying to get this channel as big as possible. Let me know what you think of these kind of videos so far, if you like these kind of styles, and we'll try and do some more in-depth things, because again, this looks like this one is like the Samori deal, pretty much over the line at the moment. Anyway, if you like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.